welcome to another edition of Stuart's Amplifier Fixes. Berkshire guitar amplifiers in Reading, England here. Freezing cold today, it's the middle of February and just ghastly outside. All those of you in sunny places, I do envy you. On the bench we have a Mesa Subway Rocket. I don't normally work on Mesas, of course I've worked on dozens. They're not my favourite amplifiers. They're very difficult to fix because of the way the printed circuit boards are fitted inside with all the wires going from the board off to the controls. What that means is you have to take every single wire off before you can even begin to flip the PCB over. A lot of techs won't touch Mesas, but anyway, this one came in. Bit of an intriguing problem. The customer says that he plays it for a while and after about 5 minutes the sound just kind of fades away to a much lower volume. Now I know what you're thinking, valves, but he has changed all the valves. 2 EL84s, 3 ECC83s I think in this from memory. I'll need to check that. And no change to the fault. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn it on and see if it works cold kind of thing. And then I think we'll just leave it on for 5 or 10 minutes and see if it's still at the same volume or if the sound goes down. So let's get straight into it. Here is the Mesa Subway Rocket. Nice looking amp actually. Not overly complicated like some of the Mesas can be with their 2 rows of controls. So this is quite nice. Let's just turn it on. The amp is now switched on. The guitar plugged in. And that sounds fine. The sort of volume I'd expect it to be. So what I'll now do is just leave the amp on for 5 or 10 minutes, come back and see if the volume has dropped. I don't want to sit here playing for 10 minutes, so let's do that and see if anything goes wrong with it. Well, eureka! 10 minutes later I come back and thin, distorted, low level signal compared to how it was. So the customer was quite correct in his diagnosis of this. I'm just going to give it a bang just in case it's something. As I've said before, it takes years to know how to hit an amplifier like this. Not just anyone can do it, you know. Nope, I don't believe it's a dry joint type of problem. Something heating up, you know, and opening a dry joint or whatever. Seems to be a pretty solid fault. Right, so we're going to have to get the chassis out and have a look inside and see what is causing this. Is it a preamp problem? Is it a power amp problem? Has the HT gone down significantly? Any of those things are possible. I know it won't be this, but I'm going to check it anyway because it only takes a few seconds. Anytime you get an amp where you've got intermittency, the signal comes and goes or goes down to low level, always check your effects send and return jacks. And one of the easiest ways to do that is just to jack them out with a jack to jack lead like that. Just a loop like that. And oh my god! Huh! Well, unless I've disturbed something, no one is more surprised than me that that has actually fixed the amp. I was just going to test that just because it's such a simple thing to do. That actually seems to have fixed it. I'm a little bit suspicious. I'd like to see that go wrong again. But we did give it a good old bang before, didn't we? Ah, that's interesting. It's gone down to low level again now. Strange. If I... Now it's still low level. But if I jack out like this, it comes back to full level. Now that's strange. Oh, effects mix. What's that do? Something intermittent there. Oh, yes, that's gone now. It's this jack. It's this return jack, I think. Just touching that has made it come and go. I'd like to hear that come back though, it's funny. I like to hear that come back without this jacking, and I'd be much more confident. There we go, that's come back. I can hear the hiss. Well, I'm wondering if this is quite simply a dirty effects return jack. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes now explaining to you what causes this problem so that you understand it. Right, to understand this you need to understand how these jack sockets work. Forget this lower one here, I've just got this one at the top here. So you plug in and it lifts, the body of the jack touches against this contact here by effectively lifting that up, you know, like that, and the tip of the jack touches this contact here effectively by lifting this up like this, and then you take the signal out on live and earth out onto these pins here, off you go into your input or whatever it is you want it for. Now these are used to jack into the power section of the amp for effects. So basically the effects return comes in here, the pre-amplifier output of the amp goes onto this pin here, and the input of the power amp goes onto this pin here. Now you can see that normally with no jack connected, there's a switch here, that's connected to there, agreed? Output of the preamp through this switch into the input of the power amp, job done. When you jack in from the effects return, you lift this switch here, so you break the link between the pre-amplifier output, and you jack in from your pedals, and that goes straight into the power amplifier. These sockets don't get used for many years at a time, and you get dirt in here, and so you end up with a poor connection here, which means that the pre-amplifier output doesn't make good contact here and go to the power amp, so you get intermittent sound, low level sound. Sometimes when you give the amp a thump the sound comes back. It's okay for 3 months and it goes again. Very frustrating kind of intermittent sound. So always clean these jacks. It's usually the return jack, but just do the send as well. You can normally do it by spraying some contact cleaner into the hole here and then wiggling a jack plug in and out loads and loads of times. I'm certainly going to try that on this amp, because it's quite time consuming to take the chassis out and you know, try to get to these contacts here. So there you go. I'll show you that on a schematic diagram too, so that you get the idea. Here we go then. So here's the pre-amplifier part of your guitar amp. So imagine that's the input jack with the guitar in. So your guitar comes in here, a bit of preamplification. It goes through the contacts of this effects return jack and goes off to the power amplifier side, and that goes to your loudspeaker to produce the sound. So with nothing plugged into that effect return jack, in comes the guitar, bit of preamplification with the ECC83s through the contacts there into the power amp, job done. Get dirt in here however, and you can see you've immediately got a problem. So that's how that problem occurs, and the way to cure it is to clean that contact. So let's have a go at that now and see if we can get this to behave itself. It'll be an excellent result if we can, because it'll be quite low cost for the customer. I'm going to spray some deoxit into the return jack, and then I'm going to work this. I can immediately hear we've got a problem there. That sound has gone. That's interesting, that's not working. That's gone low level now. full level there. Okay, might have to take chassis out on this. Oh well, we tried the simple approach, now we're going to have to take the chassis out and see what's going on here. Right, chassis out time. Well, that chassis was an absolute dog to get out of the case. It's taken me the best part of an hour. It just did not want to come out. I used every trick in the book. It's often half the battle with this job, is getting the chassis out of the case. Mad, I know, but there you go. Now here's the board behind what I initially thought was the effects send and return, but I just noticed it's the speaker sockets, and there's some quite bad joints on there actually, so I'm going to go over those joints. Here's the send and return PCB, here underneath the fuse, so we'll have a look at the joints on that board, and the good news is that's relatively easy to get that board out, so we can have a little look and see what's going on there. So let me look at the joints first of all and see if they look okay. I think I'm just going to try and take this board out here, this little sub board which has the effects jacks on. I've been over the joints with the iron and they don't seem too bad, so I don't really suspect dry joints. What can sometimes happen is that the contacts on this jack get slightly sprung so that they are open when they shouldn't be. Right, so the return jack is this one on the right here. Just going to eyeball that with the eyeglass to see if the contacts are sprung slightly. Right, might have had a little breakthrough here. The contacts on this return jack looked okay to me, and so I decided to measure them with the ohm meter on continuity to see if they were connected together, which of course they should be. So when I go onto here I'm getting 0 ohms, so that's a good contact. On this send one, which I'm not worried about, but anyway, again I get 1 ohm. But on this jack here, I thought I would just measure it, I am getting a varying signal. It's open circuit at the moment, 100 ohms, 42 ohms, 70 ohms, 90 ohms, 100 open circuit, 89 ohms, 100 ohms. This is the headphone jack. So I think that our problems might be in this headphone jack. That when you jack in, of course, it kills the speaker and connects to the headphones. When we were jacking, yeah, that's interesting. Now, why did that work when we connected the effects send and return? Don't know. Anyway, I'm going to clean the contacts on this headphone jack here. See if we can get a good continuity between here and here, and then see if that problem's gone away. To clean a contact like that, get yourself a very thin strip of paper. I've just cut this off a piece of A4 paper, and that's thin enough to get into the contact here. So what you want to do is to lift this connection, and the way you do that is to plug a jack plug into it, and you can see hopefully that that is opening this contact here. Then you put a piece of paper like that soaked in deoxit, I'm going to spray some deoxit into there, remove the jack plug so that it grips, so the switch grips the paper, and now you just slide the paper out and that cleans the contacts. And just do that a couple of times. Slide the paper out and that cleans the contacts. Don't use sandpaper or anything, it's just a bit too rough. So I'm going to do that now on this socket here. I'm just going to spray it with a bit of deoxit, like that. Spray my little strip of paper, like that. Use a jack plug to open up the connections. Slide this in to the switch, take the jack plug out, Carefully pull this through, and that wipes and cleans the contacts. I'll do that a couple more times. I think I'll do the same to the FX return jack too, just in case we're getting a bit of intermittency there. Trouble with these jacks, they aren't used for year after year after year, and they just get slightly corroded. I also think it's a bit of a naff system having the main signal go through a 1 penny piece of bent metal which acts as a switch. That's what's called single point failure. Okay, there we go, so that is now clean. Let's see if that's improved the continuity of this switch on the headphone socket. Right, so headphone socket is this one, so we're looking for a short circuit here, and we've now got a short circuit on that switch, which is perfect. Good, I'm wondering if that might have fixed the problem. I'm confident enough to pop that board back in and give it a try. I suppose I could leave that board hanging there. Yeah, let's leave the board hanging there and power it up and see what happens. Right, the amp is plugged in, switched on, and we have full power. So now it's just a question of leaving it and seeing if it fails again. If it's okay in about half an hour, I'll put the board back in and leave it a bit longer. If the chassis was very easy to get in and out, I would just pop the chassis back and see how it fares. But this chassis was an absolute pig to get out, and I'm not looking forward to putting it back in either. So I don't really want to be trying to take this chassis in and out if I don't have to. Anyway, let's see how it responds to being left for half an hour, and I'm sort of quietly confident on this one. This has been on for half an hour now and no problem. I've popped the board back in. Of course the conditions aren't exactly the same as when it was in the chassis. It's not getting as hot and a few other differences, but anyway, I think the time has come to put this back into its case and give it another test in the case, and just hope we don't have to take the chassis out again. I'm just putting this Mesa back together, and I thought I'd show you a little tip. The chassis went in reasonably well actually, so that was okay. It was getting it out that was the problem. So if you have, I was going to plug the speaker in and noticed that there's 8, 4 and 4 ohms here. Now if you have a speaker and it's not marked up, this one actually is marked up 8 ohms, so you know, put it in the 8 ohm socket, but quite often they don't say what the impedance is, and you've unplugged it and you think, oh, which one did it go in? Was it 8 or 4 ohms? You can measure the DC impedance of the speaker. Now it won't be 8 ohms because that's the AC impedance, but for an 8 ohm speaker it'll be something like 6 or 7 ohms. So you can see this one measures 7.5 ohms. Look, so that's an 8 ohm speaker. If it measured 2.6 or 3.1 or something, that would be a 4 ohm speaker. If it measured 10, 11, 12, 13 ohms, something like that, that's a 16 ohm speaker. So the DC impedance will just be a little bit less than the actual speaker AC impedance rating. So useful little tip that for checking speaker impedances. Anyway, we'll just go ahead and plug this into the 8 ohm output. This is now all back together and ready to do the final test to see if it falls over after being on for an hour, but I think we've probably cracked this one. So the chassis is back in the case, cleaned up the top a little bit so it looks a bit nicer, put a bit of spray paint on these rusty old handle covers, and the amp is working fine. I've only just turned it on, so the thing now is just, I'm going to leave this on for half an hour or so, maybe an hour, just to double check that that fault doesn't happen again, and then we can wrap this one up. Well, there you go. No one was more surprised than me, actually, to find that that was the most common fault in the amplifier repair lexicon. The old FX send and return, or in this case headphone jack socket with the dodgy connections. I didn't think it would be that, but there you go. That just shows you. So a fairly low cost fix for the customer, which is always good news. And as ever, thanks for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.